This is 365 Sports.
The Smoaky.com podcast is presented by Peter Chevrolet in Longview, Texas. Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. TFNB, your bank for life. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine. And Bubba's 33.
Here we are. It's week number 5 of the Texas high school football season. Most everybody, not everybody, but most everybody, some even began district games last week, the ones that matter to make sure you get to play past the first weekend in November. And a lot of them start this week, including we broadcast Midway Football 12-6A, which has really struggled as a district. The only team that's had a nice start is Weiss out of Pflugerville, but starting district tonight. But this week, but a lot of teams are. Let's look back at about 6 or 7 games that popped to me. We always put up the elite games at the end of this show, this podcast, and then who had the key wins? Who had the ones that maybe went, oh, in fact, one of our stories and interviews is going to be Ray Gates, the head coach at North Crowley in his second year. Man, they had a team back in 2003. They were at the end of the year playing for a championship, but they've been sporadic at best and really a lull of any success. They're a great story. They've beaten Lovejoy 12-1 last year. He'll join us, and we always look for a game that pops out at us or me or perhaps you. Last week, Gunner and Brock. Gunner's favored. They win 35-12. Brock plays a hellacious. They really do a non-district schedule. They'll be fine in the end as they continue to get bigger, but Gunner is really, really good. Mart Centerville. I thought this could end up being a slugfest. Mart was able to get loose a few times. Jonah Ross and Bell and what they have, 36-21 against Centerville. Great football teams, and both will get better because they played each other last week. Smithson Valley beat Wagner 24-7. We will hear from 30-year, longtime head coach Larry Hill momentarily. Cuero, the Gobblers beat Calallen 22-14. South Oak Cliff, talk about a non-district schedule when you have Duncanville and DeSoto, and Lancaster has to play somebody. South Oak Cliff has to play somebody, and in fact, they beat up on Dallas Parish Episcopal 49-14. They got better with that. China Spring and Conley. Garrett Ross, who runs the mothership during this podcast and also on many of our shows on 365 Sports. Conley loaded up. They have, just a bunch of good players. Sibley, the running back, had over 200 yards. We know what Kobe Black can do. He's probably going to end up at Texas, but not enough to stop China Spring, who had played a really good non-district schedule. The one loss to Melissa, 2-time 4A champions, 1 year in Division II, 1 year in Division I. They just had so much firepower. Kyle Barton ran for a lot. Obviously, Cash McCollum, who's won Mr. Texas football before. He had over 300 yards and 6 touchdowns, and the defense made just enough plays, a young defense. High-scoring game, but China Spring blew that thing open even before halftime. I love the games. I've always said this in the 409. Some of those teams are a little bit down, but West Orange, Stark, and Newton, 58-54 Newton. And if you know anything about Newton, and really with West Orange, Stark, or any schools they'll play anybody. They have to, and they do. And Newton scored late to beat West Orange Stark 58-54. Franklin and Jasper from the 409, just not quite who they have been. And it's been kind of a up and down, or not quite this surge, but they are still a very good football program. And Newton wins over West Orange Stark, and then also Franklin, 2-time defending champions, beat Jasper 29-14. It's really kind of interesting to me. 5A's beating 6A's, 3A's beating 4A's, 2A's beating 3A's. There's some that you're like, whoa, but it doesn't surprise you as much anymore. Center and Dangerfield. This is a 4A team. Center, the Rough Riders are having a great run, and they can put up a lot of points, but you knew this game with Dangerfield was going to either end up 50-48, but it ended up with a normal football score. How about that? Center winning 28-21. Steele down in the San Antonio area. Remember, they had a great run, Malcolm Brown, and they were really, really good early on. And they've kind of had a little bit of hit and miss, But they have looked very impressive this year, and they beat Legacy out of Midland, formerly Midland Lee, 62-31. Harmony made the great run last year, remember? All the way deep into the playoffs. Jeremy Jenkins, they had a great run. Had a loss earlier this year. I think it was Hooks, but they're kind of getting their mojo back, 39-22 over DeKalb in a game in deep East Texas. Here are from East and Central Texas, through my website, Smoaky.com, the players of the week. We do 4 in East and 4 in Central Texas. At the top, someone that normally just puts up big numbers. And my goodness, there were so many options for that this week. Caden Tennyson, the Gilmer quarterback, with 407 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a 59-56 shootout with a last-second field goal to beat the Eagles. The Buckeyes, who also play really good people in non-district. Trevor Brooks, look at this stat line for the linebacker. Chapel Hill's known for Demetrius Brisbane, Ricky Stewart, and what they have. He had 6 tackles, 4 tackles behind the line of scrimmage, 3 sacks, knocked down 2 passes, and also a pick in a win against Nacogdoches by 20. Giovanni James, Sabine, 47-yard field goal at the buzzer. We had a lot of those in East Texas this weekend to beat Mount Vernon in a classic game, 30-27. The Central Texas Players of the Week, Ezrian Emery. How about this? This might be single game. I don't know. You have Jacoby Williams at Beckville. There's some guy. Remember, we had Mario Porter from Frost. And by the way, his name was missing in the overall. That's on me. He was the overall player of the week for Frost again, right near Corsicana. But this is maybe the best single game overall stat line I've ever seen. First of all, a school record 335 yards rushing on just 14 carries, a school record 7 touchdowns, 17 tackles, 3 tackles behind the line of scrimmage. He caused 2 turnovers and also batted down a pass in a win against Gerald, 75-44. Silly. Junior Thornton played at Midway, saw him for a couple of years, an explosive player. Ends up at La Vega with Don Hyde. He's playing the quarterback position. He had nearly 200 yards, both rushing and passing. There you see it, 5 touchdowns in a win where they had a big lead against Lorena and had to kind of fight off the Leopards in the end. Joaquin Martinez from University. Kayron Johnson, former Cuero Gobbler, Baylor Bear, also has been coached elsewhere, including Midway. Linebacker, University's got some dudes now. 13 tackles, 8 of those solo. Sacks, the TFL, caused fumble, quarterback pressure, in a win against 6A Copper's Cove, 22-14. And then McKedrick Taylor of Chilton. Chilton, very good with head coach Benny Hewitt. Couple of kickoff returns for 123 yards, including a touchdown, and in what was a low-scoring game. 19-13 against Hearn. All right, when we come back, to me, one of the great stories this year and also last year, and maybe they, in some ways, flew under the radar last year, even though they went 12-1. We will discuss that with Ray Gates, the former Cedar Hill assistant coach. His former head coach at Cedar Hill is Carlos Lynn. He's now at Crowley. Gates now the head coach at North Crowley. Mike McFarland is their superintendent. And I used to know him. I covered him when he was a football player back at old John Tyler under Alan Wilson. And speaking of Alan Wilson, he's kind of a consultant for that school district that used to have players leave everywhere. And Ray Gates, Carlos Lynn, starting to keep the talent inside Crowley ISD. Ray Gates, head coach at North Crowley, 4-0. Next on 365 Sports and the Smoaky.com Texas High School Football Podcast. I'm David Smoke with Garrett Ross.
Peters Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram Fiat in Longview has the largest new Jeep selection in East Texas, like the Jeep Wrangler 4xe with fuel economy of 49 miles per gallon and 375 horsepower. And the Jeep Gladiator Sport is 6.9% for 72 months or 10% below MSRP. And shop new Wrangler, Gladiator, and the Jeep Grand Cherokee during the Jeep Adventure Days event. And check out the only exclusive Jeep showroom in East Texas at Peters Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram Fiat. Online at peterschryslerjeep.net.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears!
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, specializing in diagnosing and treatment of any and all sport-related injuries. Celebrating over 2 decades of service to Central Texas, they tackle all surgical and non-surgical problems that arise from an active lifestyle. Trust the doctors that Baylor trusts. And when injuries sideline you, don't wait for Monday. Join us at 8:30 on Saturday morning for a post-game injury evaluation clinic. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine Orthopedics. We get you back in the game.
This is 365 Sports.
The Smoaky.com podcast is presented by Peter Chevrolet in Longview, Texas. Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. TFNB, your bank for life. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine. And Bubba's 33.
I think it's one of the best stories, really not just this year, but also last year, but a long way to go this year. But North Crowley is 4-0, 12-1 last year. And Ray Gates, their head football coach, former assistant coach at Cedar Hill, joins me and you on what is the Texas High School Football Statewide Podcast. Ray, I spoke with Mike McFarland. I used to cover him when he was a player at John Tyler. Alan Wilson was the coach. I know that he's been helping the district as well. Had a great run at Paris, JT, and even Carter. But the one thing he said to me that I was like, really? And I know this can happen. Sometimes school districts have what they need to win. Sometimes it may be the lack of leadership, or sometimes they can't keep the kids in their own school district. And it's like you guys, not that you put up a wall, but you have put up like, hey, we want you to stay here. We're going to give you a reason to stay here and play for us and start something special. Where did all that come from with you?
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be on the show and tell our story here in North Crowley. We're really excited about, the opportunity today and for people around the state to know who we are. So to start answering your question, it started off with just getting here. I felt like the administration had done a really good job of pouring interest and value into the programs that we have here at Crowley ISD. We have a magnificent stadium. We're in year 2 of it, a $56 million stadium that was built. We're about to build, some more things around here in our district. So the resources in the administration definitely, have been invested, in Crowley ISD. And so my job coming in was to create the buzz and to make sure that we did a really good job of keeping our kids here. We've always had kids here in Crowley ISD, and a lot of those kids at different times that, moved off and went to play at, different places. And so coming in, just generating that type of energy around the program and getting the community to buy in has definitely given us, the upper hand in year 2.
When Mike told me that when he interviewed you, I said, so what stood out? Obviously, with what you've done as a coach. But he said that you're kind of the kind of person that kids will migrate to, like a student athlete or students like a magnet, that they're gonna be attached to how your personality is, and that they're gonna believe in you. Crowley was not only were you losing players to other districts, but also a lot of players sometimes when there's a coaching change that I don't want to make this sound bad, like they're walking the hallways. They're not in athletics. They're doing something. They're not interested. Why do I want to play here? How much did it take for you to be able to get young men that did not want to play football, didn't know why they would want to play football at North Crowley, but now they are?
Well, it started with the transition. I'm really good friends with, Courtney Allen, who was the head coach here before. And so one of the things that happened when I first got the job was Coach Allen and I got on the phone and we called several of the players, and I had an opportunity to talk with them on the phone with him, and he just kind of reassured the guys that he had a relationship with, that they were going to be in good hands, and that the program was going to move forward. And so that definitely helped, give us a little bit of credibility coming in with our kids. And then you have guys like Samaje Burrell and DeJuan Lacey. Samaje right now is at the University of Texas. He's a guy that could have easily, after Coach Allen, left, could have went anywhere he wanted to, and he decided that he was going to stay, and he kind of rallied the guys behind him. And so that definitely helped us get off to the right start in our program. And so, being able to do that, we were able to build on that momentum in the spring going into the summer. And then when we started the season, it was just, every week had its different challenge, but it was an awesome experience last year.
Carlos Lynn is at the other side there. He's at Crowley. You coached with him at Cedar Hill. How much has this going to build into one heck of a rivalry between the two of you?
I can definitely say that Coach Lynn has poured into my life in more ways than not. I wouldn't be here without Coach Lynn. Being able to work for him for 5 years, as a special teams coordinator, as a defensive coordinator, my last year there, he allowed me to grow and to become the person that I am. And so I owe him, a lot in my career and also in my private life as, how I carry myself. I'm really excited about him over at Crowley. He's done a great job. They're 4-0 as well. And the way it's looking, in that last week in November is going to be an interesting one here for the district championship, hopefully.
Hey, is it true you guys now, you don't have enough lockers in the athletic facility because so many kids are now being a part of athletics?
Yeah. Right now in our locker room that's allocated for us in our field house, we don't have enough lockers. So we've taken over the track locker room, and we have about 35 kids in there, and then we have close to 60 in the soccer locker room right now. So we're exploding at the seams. There's a lot of growth that's happening also here in Crowley. We have over 22,000 lots that are brand new and new build homes that are coming to this city. I think we're the number one fastest growing city in the Metroplex in the southern sector. So we're excited about the growth, and our district has done an unbelievable job in preparing us for the growth.
For those that don't know, that when you took the job, it wasn't just you trying to contain and sustain some success at North Crowley with your student athletes, but you also embraced Dallas or the Metroplex, Dallas-Fort Worth, with off-season workouts to help young men if they needed somewhere to work out or needed to train so they have a chance to play college football or elsewhere. That's not something everybody would do, and you did that. How long did that take for that to kick in?
Well, it was a process. I've been fortunate to start my career. I coached under I had an opportunity to start coaching under Darren Carthel at West Texas A&M from 2006 to 2009. So I was a Division II football coach. I hit the road recruiting, looking for kids. My offensive coordinator, Eli Reinhardt, he's been a college coach for 10 years. He's coached at some great places, Central Michigan being the last, probably the one with the most notoriety is Ferris State. And so he understood the recruiting aspect of it. And we sat down one day and we said, hey, let's like help our kids in this area have an opportunity. How can we do that? And so we came up with this idea of having a combine here at our place free of charge. And it's for all unsigned 2023 seniors last year. And so it was a great turnout. We contacted every Division II, Division III school in the area. We strategically picked the last week of recruiting cycle so that when these guys are in the Metroplex, they could stop by and watch these kids. And so it was a beautiful story to watch. A lot of kids get opportunities coming, out of that camp. And we had about 150 kids show up, and probably, a good portion of those guys got college opportunities last year. You played or coached, at Cedar Ridge. I remember when Midway, I've done Midway football, played Cedar Ridge, and Sean Bells, who's now at Baylor's first year, and you guys, Jalen Ellis, I think, was a sophomore that year, but you just beat the hell out of him in that game. Right. And then Sean, of course, moves on to be at Baylor. You were there. You now just finished playing against your old head coach at Lovejoy. Now you're going to be playing against Carlos
at Crowley. So you've got kind of a spider web of connections and relationships, don't you?
I do, and this is year 18 for me, and I think it's been a blessing to be underneath the leadership that I've been underneath. I've started out again with Coach, Coach Carthel at West Texas A&M, so I'm well connected with the Carthels and his son, who's doing a great job over at SFA. Started coaching high school at Tascosa High School in Amarillo for Ken Plunk. So I was at Tascosa for 4 years. I left there and I became the defensive coordinator. When Chad Dunham, our DC, got the head job at Dumas, I was there for a year and moved on to Cedar Ridge for 3 years and then Cedar Hill for 5. So, being underneath all of those guys, I was able to take a little bit from each one of those guys and apply it to, what my beliefs are and my core values are as a head coach. And I believe that it's helped me, definitely run this program and shape this program to the success that we've had.
This is my 43rd year of covering high school football. And one of my favorite people in the history of ever is Alan Wilson. I covered him. He was at Paris, as you know, won a state title. Then what he did with JT, now Tyler High, the state championship, I did their last 3 games that year. And then they played for one, lost to Katy in 2000. Then he goes to Carter and does a pretty good job there. How much do you soak in what he can help you with? And what is his actual role with Crowley ISD?
Well, Coach Wilson definitely has forgotten, more football than I'll ever have an opportunity to learn and know. So I am blessed beyond measure that when I had an opportunity to come here, Coach Wilson was, deemed the interim head coach. So he had an opportunity really to just kind of watch and see what was really broken and what the administrative side needed to do in order to fix those things. So coming into this job, I was in a unique situation because I had an opportunity to have a guy like Alan Wilson here help get things on the right track from an administrative standpoint. So all I had to worry about doing is just really coaching football and getting our kids up to speed on the things that we wanted to do. Coach Wilson's still around. He pops in every week. I have and if you know Coach Wilson, whenever he shows up, you might as well block off an hour to 2 hours of your time because Coach Wilson loves to talk. And I love to listen. And every week he gives me something, a nugget that I use going into that week in preparation, something that I can give to the kids, something that I put in my back pocket. And just that wisdom is irreplaceable. So I'm blessed that he's here. All
right. Now I have to ask you this because in today's America of football, everything is pretty wide open. There's some that run the slot T but I know him. He lived and died with the wing T. So what offense are you running?
Well, we're very multiple.
That's what I thought. So did you have, is he tried to get you, and it worked for him. But no, that's he ran that with perfection, knew how to get the big kids on the offensive line that could move. But I bet that's been some fun talk, right?
It has, and to be honest with, a lot of our schemes, has some type of variations of, the wing T style of running game. We're really a gap scheme team. And, when you look at a lot of wing T teams, they, are a gap scheme team as well with your buck sweeps and your power plays. And we run a lot of those same types of schemes. So when you come watch us, you get a chance to see some of that just kind of updated a little bit.
Was there a win your first year? Was it Lovejoy? Trinity? Of course, they've got a huge tradition. Not quite the same. Was there a win when you said, hey, we've got this? I know Prosper ended your year, and that's been feeding you since, but what game made you realize we're pretty good?
It would have been that Lovejoy game. That Lovejoy game, I felt going into it, they were a loaded team on the offensive side of the ball. They had 4 Division I receivers. Their offensive line was big, physical, and nasty. And, they were able, to put up, crazy points in the first 2 weeks of the season versus really good teams, an Argyle team and a College Station team. So we knew we had our hands full. We knew that we were going to have to come out and play really well on the defensive side of the ball if we wanted a chance to win the game. And our kids came in and they just bought in that entire week, and we had one of our best weeks of practice, and it resulted in a win for us on that Friday. And it was at that moment that we began to believe, just fully bought in our kids, that we can go and we can do this thing here at North Crowley. And so when I look back, even till today, I mean, that win was a huge win for us. And heck, this year it was a big win for us.
Yeah, that validated it again. Not that you needed that, but you got it again. Trinity coming up this week. Ray, very proud of what you're doing, how you've soaked and marinated in all the information you've watched, but also put your own fingerprint on it. Mike McFarland raves about you. I've known him a long time, and when I looked up who the superintendent was, I said, okay, this makes all the sense in the world. Good luck. And really, I've done games where North Crowley was the opponent, and it wasn't pretty because things weren't very good, and what you've done in a short amount of time is incredible. And I know that you have bigger goals. I wish you the best of luck, and congratulations so far, and good luck going forward, not only this week, but also into the future.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys for having us on.
Ray Gates, the head coach at North Crowley. They're 4-0. Trinity coming up this Friday, and this is the Texas statewide high school football podcast.
Peters Ram in Longview is the #1 Ram truck dealer in East Texas. Don't miss the biggest deal in Texas. The Ram Half-Ton Lone Star, 2.9% for 72 months, or get a $9,000 discount. Ram heavy-duty trucks, the largest selection this year, and Ram commercial and fleet units are in stock and ready to go to work. The largest selection of new Ram vehicles at Peters Ram during the Ram Power Days. Online at peterschryslerjeep.net.
Time to get it on.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears!
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, specializing in diagnosing and treatment of any and all sport-related injuries. Celebrating over 2 decades of service to Central Texas, they tackle all surgical and non-surgical problems that arise from an active lifestyle. Trust the doctors that Baylor trusts. And when injuries sideline you, don't wait for Monday. Join us at 8:30 on Saturday morning for a post-game injury evaluation clinic. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics. We get you back in the game.
This is 365 Sports.
The Smoaky.com podcast is presented by Peters Chevrolet in Longview, Texas. Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. TFNB, your bank for life. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine. And Bubba's 33.
Larry Hill has been the head coach at Smithson Valley since the early 1990s, and they had a history before him that was not very good. And what they have done, the Rangers since that time, is really remarkable. And Larry Hill, the head coach at Smithson Valley, joins me, David Smoke, on the Texas High School Football Podcast. 30 years? 300 career wins? 20-something in consecutive playoff appearances. You make the quarterfinal round like you're breathing. Why? Why have you been able to have this success at Smithson Valley?
Well, I think it's a lot of things. I don't know that there's any single factor that you can point to. Of course, we've been blessed. God's blessed us in so many ways. But, a stable coaching staff that's been together for a long time, working for and with outstanding people who share, belief systems and common goals. A great community support, tradition. We're coaching some kids whose dads played here in the early years. Great middle school feeder system that we have control over. We don't have divided attendance zones or anything like that, and continuity. And then, of course, I think success breeds success. We've had a whole generation of players come through that don't know that it could really be any other way. So I don't think it's any one of those things. I think it's just a combination of all those things.
You mentioned the early years, and I brought this up to you before we started. I went to Universal City Randolph. I moved there right before my senior year. I had lived in Japan. My dad was military, like most of the kids at Randolph. And I think it was like one of the fourth or fifth, sixth games Smithson Valley had ever played. Randolph won 34-0. But I remember, and I've always, the schools we played back then were Bernie, Smithson Valley. I played New Braunfels Canyon, who you play in this week, a huge rival. And I've watched those schools, how they've grown and gotten better, including what you've done. When did you think, because you were 1-9, I think, your first year, and probably everyone goes, okay, but when did you know? What was the game or the year or the moment when you thought, this thing, we're going to turn this around?
Well, we began to see signs the first year. We were 1-9, as you mentioned, coming off a 1-9 the year prior to my arrival. But, games that had been 51-7 were 17-10 or 24-14, or, we lost a lot of games late. So we began to close the gap, even though there were no tangible results as far as any more wins than what we had. So you began to see it there. But then having a full off season and into the second year, we needed a breakthrough. And, we started the year and won all of our non-district games. So that in itself had everybody buzzing. But I think New Braunfels Canyon had just come off a 12 or 13 game season. They'd advanced a good ways in the playoffs, and they were the reigning district champions. And we played over there, and we had a big throw and catch, and we caught a pass in the end zone with about 10, 11 seconds left to win it. I think on the bus ride home, our players sensed we have won. Now we've beaten somebody that maybe we're not supposed to beat yet. And we went on to make the playoffs that second year. And, from that point, we just been able to build a little bit more and a little bit more. A year or two later, we won our first playoff game. And, success breeds success.
You mentioned the Canyon, and that's who you're playing this week. You have an 18-game win streak against them. And I want to keep reflecting back, but when I played for the Rohawks, Cole, the Army base and the Air Force base, was a huge rivalry, and Randolph won that thing like forever, even if it was one-sided, and it is now in a way, but I know you still have great respect for them. What is the rivalry like? I know the locations, the proximity are like right next to each other, but what is that rivalry like with Canyon?
Well, not to pour water on the topic, but it's probably not as big a rival as people think. We are in the same ISD, Comal ISD, but their kids are in New Braunfels. They're a lot closer and know many more of the New Braunfels high school kids. That worst bowl, as they call it, it's a non-district game now because they're in different classifications, but it's been played every year for a long time. Smithson Valley and Canyon have been back and forth. We're 6A, they're 5A, so we don't play. They're 6A, we're 5A, so we don't play. So really last year was the first time we'd played them in 3 or 4 or 5 years. And our, we have a healthy respect for them. They do a tremendous job with their program, and we're up against it. But I don't know that it's not an Army, Navy, Alabama, Auburn, OU, Texas thing. But it's a big game because it's early in district play against a couple of teams who have playoff aspirations, and it'll be a big game setting for sure.
I have seen schools that used to kind of be on their own. You mentioned you have your own feeder system and that, but the growth in that area, because it's between San Antonio and Austin, like Hayes Consolidated used to be their own school, and now, of course, that's changed. How have you handled, it seemed like pretty darn well, the growth in that area between San Antonio and Austin?
Well, it has been a challenge because, it's divided our school a couple of times. I think 2007 Canyon Lake opened and pulled a portion of our attendance zone. And then a couple of years ago, the new Piper School pulled about 50% of our student enrollment. So, classification changes up and down, but we've managed to hold on. We really have just rocked on. We haven't ever addressed it in the sense of, okay, now what? We're very systematic in our approach. We have a process like most people do, but we just kind of spend a lot of time working on that during the week, trying to win Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And, we don't embrace anyone as our rival. You mentioned Canyon a minute ago. It's not that they're not our rival. We don't embrace anybody as our rival. Old Bill Walsh axiom, the rival is the standard of excellence, and you compete against that every day, and the winning and losing kind of takes care of itself. So with the growth and the new schools opening and our declining enrollment, we've just kind of rocked on. We haven't really addressed it. We've just kept going, and okay, we're playing new people now. Let's go. What's next?
Like next man up, right? When somebody, you don't want to see somebody go down. 300 wins. There aren't a lot in the history of Texas that have won 300 wins. I know a lot of them from the time I've covered the game since 1981. Was that win any different than number 150 or 100 or 1?
Well, yes and no. I mean, no. We approach every game the same, and I was a little nervous about it, honestly, this summer because I didn't want it to become a thing with our players or our coaches or our community. A build up or, geez, what if we don't get it done tonight and it has to wait a week? Or I didn't want that. But yet at the same time, it's inevitable because it is a milestone. And I didn't want to be a guy to be the stick in the mud, the old guy, the poo that didn't. So to get it was, and to get it at home was special. But I think the other big thing is Wagner, as well as they're playing, as loaded and dangerous as they are, to be able to go 1-0 in district against a quality team, a team that's competing for the district championship, made it all the more better. And being at home, our community and school and supporters, as you would expect, did a nice little post-game ceremony, and it was really well done. Not over the top, which wouldn't suit me, but so I was tickled about that, and it is a milestone. But at the same time, I made this comment the other night. I get a little nervous when the word "my" 100th win or Larry Hill's 300th win. He's just a guy, and there's a lot of coaches that have been here a long time too, that have been here throughout all of them. A lot of players, great community support, great administration, working for and with the best people that I know. And so for me to get credit for a 300th win makes me a little uneasy, but I think that's how it is. That's just, that's how it is. But we're very proud of what we've accomplished here. And but it's on to the next one, because here we go with week 2 in district, and we got to get this one.
Larry, your father coached, and I know that there was an article that I looked up that your brother coached. His son coaches for you. You have sons in the coaching profession. What was the one, if there was one specific thing you learned from your father and what he told you about the coaching profession?
Well, is my idol, remains that today. He's 92 years old and rocking along and watching all the games. But, it's funny. I was at all the practices, all the games around that my whole life growing up, my brother and I. But what really was compelling to me is how the ex-players would come back. They'd see him in the store. They'd see him in the parking lot. They'd see him at church. And how they would just gush over how they were better men because of playing for him. They never brought up the wins. Sometimes I would ask when the guy left, was he one of your better players? I don't remember him. No, not necessarily. Being better men when they leave your program. And now, do they gain those lessons more when you're winning? Absolutely. But I think that's the biggest thing. And then the other thing I think I learned from him is you got to change with the times. My dad coached in the segregation era and he coached in the integration. And the steps that he took behind the scenes to make that go smoothly at the school he was at, pretty phenomenal. particularly a guy that was born in the Deep South and lived in Southern Texas. So, not being afraid to change. Of course, that was a social change, but even on the field, what can this group of players do, and how can we modify or adapt to play to their strengths? And I saw that up close.
Last thing for you, Larry Hill, Smithson Valley football coach with us on the Texas High School Football Podcast. Today's America, today's football, we see now what's happening, what's trickled down into college with the NIL and transfer portal, and this is the way things are. What is the biggest challenge, in your opinion, for the coaching profession?
Well, I think getting kids to stick with something. You mentioned the transfer portal and NIL, and that's, of course, at the college level, but we're beginning to see some of that even at the high school level. I think this is the greatest generation ever as far as being informed, being intelligent. There's so much information at their fingertips, whether it's their phone, their computer, or they're the smartest ever. I think what gets lost there, and it's not anyone's fault because all of us are prone to it, but you move right on to the next thing. I mean, let me swipe the screen, go read something else. This is boring. Or I want to go check this out. And I think it's pervaded into our consciousness. If things aren't working out, I'm going to go somewhere else, or I'm going to do something else, or I'm not going to do this anymore, or all the above. And resiliency, if we're not careful, is going to become a lost trait. And athletics, football in general, was a place for a long time where, you dig your spurs in the sand and you anchor in and you get with it. And I hope we're not losing that. I'd like to think we're not, but it is a bigger challenge than ever because of the society we live in.
Man, well said. Thank you, Coach. I'm so glad I was able to get a hold of you. So glad you're a part of what we do. I love what you do for a living. I have great respect for the coaches around the state of Texas. And my 43 years covering the game, and even a couple of years that I played it, I appreciate your time. Congratulations on what you've done. I know that means nothing now because you have the next challenge ahead of you, and that's why you've been so successful at Smithson Valley. Have a great week and good luck this week.
Okay, thanks for having me on.
Larry Hill, the head coach at Smithson Valley on the Texas High School Football Podcast, Smoaky.com.
Peters Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram Fiat in Longview has the largest new Jeep selection in East Texas, like the Jeep Wrangler 4xe with fuel economy of 49 miles per gallon and 375 horsepower. And the Jeep Gladiator Sport is 6.9% for 72 months or 10% below MSRP. And shop new Wrangler, Gladiator, and the Jeep Grand Cherokee during the Jeep Adventure Days event. And check out the only exclusive Jeep showroom in East Texas at Peters Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram Fiat. Online at peterschryslerjeep.net.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, specializing in diagnosing and treatment of any and all sport-related injuries. Celebrating over 2 decades of service to Central Texas, they tackle all surgical and non-surgical problems that arise from an active lifestyle. Trust the doctors that Baylor trusts. And when injuries sideline you, don't wait for Monday. Join us at 8:30 on Saturday morning for a post-game injury evaluation clinic. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics. We get you back in the game.
This is 365 Sports.
The Smoaky.com podcast is presented by Peter Chevrolet in Longview, Texas. Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. TFNB, your bank for life. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine. And Bubba's 33.
Thanks again to Ray Gates, the head coach at North Crowley, and also Larry Hill, 300 now game winner with his couple of years at Jordanton and also now what he's done at Smithson Valley. So here is the pick'em winner, Smoaky.com, and the very top of the website on the homepage, Smoaky.com, there's a pick'em link, and you can go to that link. The winner last week was Sandy Van Horn from Omaha. That's where Paul Pewitt High School is located, up near the Texarkana area. 26-4. You see the winners: Randy Polk, Nicholas Hansen, Greg Ogletree, and now Sandy Van Horn, our winner from last week, with a nice record of 26-4. Go to that link up until 5 on Thursdays and make your picks. Here are the games of this week. This is according to our great friend Jerry Forrest at pigskinprep.com. There's about 12 or 15 of them. China Spring again. They've played Melissa. They just came off the nice win against Conley, playing Parish Episcopal. China Spring, the Cougars, a 7-point or touchdown favorite in this game. Ought to be good. Parish Episcopal plays good people. They're 1-3. Anna, he got beat last week by Salina. They'll play All Saints Episcopal, and they're a 4-point underdog, Anna. 2-1 against 4-0. A game between Comanche and Albany. Albany's so good always, 4-0. Fort Bend Marshall, unbeaten against Port Neches Groves. There's the Conley game against Brownwood, and Brownwood looks good at 4-0, and they will host Conley this week in Brownwood at Gordonwood Stadium. Also, Lake Travis and Westlake. This used to be a Lake Travis series. Then Westlake's taken over. This one's pretty competitive. Both of them undefeated. 6-point pick for Westlake. The number on the right side, the blue number, the lower the number, the better the game of the two combined teams that are playing. Like China Spring has an 8 with the combined rankings of who they are, and also Parish Episcopal. Also, a 409 game. You hear me talk about that all the time. Silsby and West Orange Stark. Silsby about a 2-touchdown favorite. Talked to John King by text earlier this week. He'll join us next week. The Lobos play at Lancaster. There will be some dudes on that field. Of course, Taylor Tatum, the running back who's committed to play at Oklahoma. But Longview, remember, got thumped. Lost earlier in the year to open up the season. They've won 3 straight. Chilton and Deweyville, 8-0 combined. Carthage is a heavy favorite, but nice story at Bullard at 4-0. Carthage still the heavy favorite. Frisco, Battle of Wakeland and Lone Star, with Lone Star a slight favorite. They lost that opening game, remember, to Texas High. Lubbock, Estacado, and West Plains are a game that's getting some interest. Smithson Valley, we, of course, featured Larry Hill just a moment ago against New Braunfels Canyon. Smithson Valley's won 18 straight against New Braunfels Canyon in that long history that didn't, well, not long history, started back in the mid-1970s. Decatur, they have a really good team, but you look at the record, they need a win, and they play Alvarado, and looks like they might be able to get one. Really good game in Central Texas. Lorena and Cameron Yo. Lorena's lost to, They lost to China Spring, and they lost to Conley, I believe. Is that right? Is that right, Garrett?
La Vega.
I'm sorry, La Vega. So they're 2-2, but look at who they lost to. They will play Yo. And then there's Holland and Weimer. Holland coming off a win against Bremond, 4-0 against 4-0. So thanks to Garrett Ross. Thanks to you. My website, Smoaky.com. You can go do the pick'em until 5 o'clock on Thursday. And also there's the forums, the message boards. That's kind of, you walk in there, be ready, because people are always talking a little trash. I'm David Smoke for Garrett Ross and our great sponsors. This is the Texas High School Football Podcast, Smoaky.com version on 365 Sports. Enjoy week number 5.
This is 365 Sports.
The Smoaky.com podcast is presented by Peter Chevrolet in Longview, Texas. Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. TFNB, your bank for life. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine. And Bubba's 33.